Ashley.
Yeah, Charles, okay, the exit polls show that the Conservatives lose 17 seats, which would be an absolute disaster for Prime Minister Theresa May. But let me just tell you this. Some of those earlier results are showing that maybe the polls were wrong, at least in two constituencies. The Conservatives picking up a lot more votes. In fact, it shows that they are picking up almost all of the UKIP votes, the United Kingdom Independence Party. So, also, we understand that the exit poll did not include the postal vote, which is very popular in the UK. About 1 in 5 people use the mail to mail in their vote, so that's 20%. So hang on, as they say. We'll see how this night goes. It promises to be a long one, but certainly the exit polls show that the Conservatives, with 314 votes, they have the most seats in Parliament, according to the polls, but they lose their majority. And let us not forget that Theresa May didn't have to call this election at all. Back on April 18th, she said, yep, let's do it, because I think certainly she believed she was going to get a 50, maybe 100-seat majority in Parliament, and that would give her the mandate to go ahead and negotiate the Brexit terms. But it's all blown up in her face. I was just looking at the early newspaper headlines in the Times. Theresa May, it says, big gamble fails. Now, these are the early headlines. As I say, Charles, it's going to be a long night, and let's see what the real results show us. But in the early going, it doesn't seem like a very good night for Theresa May at all.
Thank you very much, Ashley Webster. We really appreciate it. Now I want to go to my panel, Brian Cattell and Nile Gardiner. Now, let me start with you. It is early, and these are exit polls. The final vote probably will go well into past midnight. Nevertheless, it does seem one overarching narrative has emerged in that Theresa May have overplayed her hand. Where did she go wrong?
Well, certainly, it's certainly a bad start to the night for Theresa May and for the Conservatives. It's not all over, though. I think that there's still an opportunity for the Conservatives to reach that magic 326 majority number that they need. But without a doubt, this has certainly been a little bit unfortunate so far. I think with regard to Theresa May, there was certainly an element of complacency on the part of the Conservatives at the beginning of the campaign. I think, on the other hand, the Labour Party fought a very, very ferocious campaign led by a hard left leader, Jeremy Corbyn, who in my view is completely unfit to be the Prime Minister. But they did fight tooth and nail, and they've also, it seems, got out a lot of their younger voters as well, which is very important, of course, for the Labour Party. Now, having said that, of course, as your correspondent mentioned in London, that 20% of the postal votes have not yet been counted. Most of those postal votes are probably elderly voters who tend to back the Conservatives. So I think it's not over yet, but we're certainly in for a nail-biting few hours.
Brian, you and I were talking in a break-in. If indeed Theresa May and the Conservatives fall short of that 326 number, their only choices would be to form some form of a coalition, and they have very limited choices there. In fact, that might even ultimately bring Brexit back into play.
That's absolutely right, Charles. I mean, as has been said, it's a very long night, and we've got to wait to see how things play. But if the worst-case scenario comes true, then the Conservatives face a very difficult choice in trying to form a coalition. It's very hard to see where they go, because the Lib Dems would be very wary of forming a coalition. And what they've said, the Lib Dems, is that if they had to form a coalition with the Tories, they would extract massive concessions on Brexit, which might mean having a referendum at the end of, again, at the end of the 2-year negotiation period.
But the exit itself has been triggered, so that's going to happen no matter what. It's just right. During the course of the 2-year period, they'll be able to offer more concessions to Europeans and probably water down what the original
That's exactly right. It'll come down to the hard Brexit versus soft Brexit debate. And if the Lib Dems are in government, the pressure that they will exert and the fact that the Tories will have, just not strong support in Parliament could be decisive in determining the form of Brexit. But this is worst-case scenario. We've got to wait and see what happens.
Now, what happened with respect to all of these terror incidents? To me, again, it seemed that that would have solidified a victory for Theresa May and the Conservatives, despite the fact that she herself didn't have a great track record.
I think actually the terror attacks probably didn't help Theresa May, actually. After all, she was the Home Secretary before becoming the Prime Minister. She came under quite heavy fire ironically from the Labour Party of all people actually, about being soft on terrorism. And I think that, the Labour Party actually perhaps gained a bit from the security situation, actually. But there are many other, big factors in this election. I think economic issues are very important, of course, for voters. Jeremy Corbyn promised the earth, really, to Labour voters. He promised an end to austerity, huge increases in government spending, and this is clearly attractive to a sizable percentage of the British public. So I think if Theresa May loses the majority, it's ultimately down, I think, to economic issues and a whole series of false promises being made by the Labour leadership, which they simply cannot live up to. They don't have the money, of course, to do that.
All right, gentlemen, thank you both very much. And the big question now is what happens tomorrow? And of course, the UK, closely aligned with the United States, and economically, it should have some sort of an impact on our markets, but what about our politics? We'll discuss it all next.